But we need to go for an update now on the ongoing October 7 anniversary activities, as we're now joined by John Gambrell in Jerusalem. Good morning, John. Right, John, the October 7 attack reminded the Jews of the Holocaust attack, which took millions of Jewish lives.
Good morning.
It thus seems to be the trigger to trigger the latest iteration of war between Israel and Hamas. How has Israel's bombardment of Gaza yielded the needed result of destroying terrorism?
That's a really interesting question, and it's part of this wider soul searching that we've seen in Israel over this last year. This Hamas attack that started everything was a year ago. It saw Hamas militants come across the border into Israel, kill some 1,200 people, and take 250 others hostage back to the Gaza Strip. In the time since, we have seen Israel basically demolish the Gaza Strip. There has been just incredible damage that's been done there. We've seen over 41,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza, and we've also seen hundreds killed in the West Bank. Both Gaza and the West Bank are what the Palestinians hope to have for their future state one day. And it's not that this conflict is just focused here. In the last couple of months, we've actually seen it grow out over the borders of Israel into Lebanon, where, as of right now, Israel is still conducting just devastating airstrikes on areas it describes as being sites of either Hezbollah missiles or refueling areas or other places. And we're also seeing Israel threaten Iran as well. And Iran has launched 2 ballistic missile attacks on Israel, one back in April and another just a week ago. So everything remains very tense here. You brought up the Holocaust as something that always stays in the mind of Jews in Israel, the fact that they had faced near extermination back in World War II, and that's something that people are mentioning again today. The October 7th attack a year ago was what Israel describes as the worst, highest number of Jews being killed in any single event in the time since the Holocaust. So all of this together just makes it that much more emotional and that much more soul-searching for Israel as they try to decide just what they're trying to do, how to get these hostages back, and as international negotiations over a potential ceasefire just appear stalled.
Well, John, our support for Benjamin Netanyahu and his leadership changed over the past year. Is he losing international support, or is he just gaining more influence?
That's a very interesting question, and Benjamin Netanyahu long has campaigned as being Mr. Security in Israel. He has long said that he is the only one that can make sure that Israel is protected as it faces threats from Hamas, Palestinian militants, and these other militant groups that are arraigned in what Iran describes as the so-called axis of resistance. Now, Netanyahu, even before October 7th, faced a lot of political criticism inside of Israel. There was a move by Netanyahu to change the structure of Israel's judiciary. That saw a lot of pro-democracy protesters out in the streets. We saw just mass protests in Tel Aviv and across the country over that. Now, in the time since, Netanyahu, who is still in office because he's surrounded by these really hard-line figures from smaller parties, he needs to maintain that support in order to maintain his premiership. And one of the things that remains important for Netanyahu is the longer that he remains premier, the longer he's going to stay out of jail. He faces a series of corruption charges and trials that have sort of dogged him over the last several years. He denies any guilt in any of this, but as soon as he would stop being prime minister, in theory, he would face potentially that those cases, the full brunt of them, and any potential imprisonment or fines over them. So for Netanyahu, domestically, that's the situation. Abroad, it's really unclear just how much support he has left. Joe Biden, who long has talked about Golda Meir and talked about his own support of Israel, has really started to back away from Netanyahu. You might remember that Joe Biden came about a month after the October 7th attack. Netanyahu embraced him on a runway. But in the time since, Biden has started to say that he would hope that Netanyahu would take a ceasefire, that he would see those remaining some 100 hostages and others released and put forward a ceasefire to stop the fighting in Gaza. Netanyahu so far hasn't done that. We've also heard from Emmanuel Macron of France, who's also saying that he wants to stop countries from supplying weapons that Israel is using in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu came out really hard over that yesterday, but it just shows that while Israel maintains sort of that ironclad support from the Americans for missile defense and for other matters, there is starting to be a real, I don't want to say anger, but a real concern among Western powers that Israel may have gone too far.
Okay. I mean, so do you believe, with this prolonged conflict across the Middle East, there's going to be use of unchecked weapons, like chemical weapons?
Well, it's an interesting question because Israel, though it's never acknowledgement, does have nuclear arms. They're the only country in the Middle East to have nuclear weapons. India and Pakistan also have nuclear weapons, but they're considered more Asia. And all this comes as the tensions between Israel and Iran have really heightened. Iran does not, and I repeat, does not have a nuclear weapons program. However, it is enriching uranium to near weapons grade levels as we speak. That's from former President Donald Trump withdrawing the U.S. from that nuclear deal that Iran had with world powers back in 2018. So there has been some discussion of whether or not Iran would potentially seek the bomb in the time since, especially as Israel is threatening to strike at Iran. We've heard from some analysts here in Israel suggesting that Iran's nuclear program sites could be targets of Israel. Now, we haven't seen any Israeli direct attack on Iran yet, but even just last night, Iran stopped flights over much of the country. And they didn't give an explanation, but it was apparently out of concern that there could be this Israeli strike. It didn't happen, but as of right now, we're still not seeing a lot of Iran's top leadership in its military. They stayed away from an event with the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, on Friday, and there's some thought that they might be in hiding or otherwise trying to keep a low profile as this potential Israeli retaliatory strike still looms.
Thank you so much. Currently, it seems Netanyahu is not taking instructions from the Biden administration in Washington. Is he trying to create a process of a Trump return ahead of the U.S. election next month?
I think that's the big, million-dollar question here is this November, the U.S. will have a new president, whether that is Kamala Harris, the Democrat who is running as the vice president of Joe Biden, or Donald Trump, who had his own long relationship with the Middle East, as I mentioned before, the collapse of the nuclear deal with world powers. There is some thought that among everyone in the sort of the American political system that it's difficult to kind of manage this relationship with Israel. Even Donald Trump, towards the end of his presidency, became pretty irate with Netanyahu. You might remember that Trump launched that attack that killed Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general in Baghdad back in 2020. In Trump's own words, he felt that Netanyahu never really backed him on that, didn't really have the support for him after that. But in the time since, Trump on the campaign trail has been very careful in describing the Israeli conflict. He has said that he would push for a ceasefire and immediately get one. He's offered no evidence or any sort of ideas on how he would pursue that ceasefire. On Harris's side, we have heard Harris offer some comments over concerns about the Palestinians, how many have been killed so far. But even Harris, in the last debate, made a point to say that she would be willing to strike back at Iran with the full force of the U.S. military. So while there is sort of this tension between Israel and the U.S. Politicians, it does seem like that ironclad support for Israel will continue, even though there are these growing concerns over the devastation that we've seen in the Gaza Strip and now even in Lebanon as this war continues.
Well, thank you very much, John Gambrell. Good to see you again after so many years.